The vault drain that changed everything. 4 days in December 2025. That is all it took for over 60% of COMEX registered silver to be claimed for physical delivery, not transferred between categories. Actual metal claimed by buyers demanding delivery. COMEX registered silver, the category available for immediate physical delivery, stood at approximately 60 million ounces in early December. 4 days later, less than 24 million ounces remained available. That is a 60% depletion rate never recorded in COMEX history. Not during 2008 financial crisis, not during 2020 COVID panic, never. This is not data error. This is industrial buyers, institutional funds, and sovereign entities demanding physical metal before January 1st, 2026, when China's export licensing takes effect and locks 60% to 70% of global silver refining behind government approval. 6 days from now, 6 days until global silver supply chain fractures permanently. 6 days until price discovery mechanism breaks and physical premiums detach completely from paper futures. If you own paper silver, futures contracts, or unallocated ETF shares, you need to understand what is happening. The COMEX vault drain is warning that paper market is losing connection to physical reality. When 60% of deliverable silver disappears in 4 days, buyers no longer trust the paper system. They are converting contracts to metal, taking possession, removing silver from exchange because they believe prices are about to gap substantially higher and want guaranteed access. The math that proves system failure. Global silver industrial demand runs approximately 680 million ounces annually. That is 1.86 million ounces per day. COMEX registered silver currently sits at 36 million ounces after the 4-day drain. At current industrial demand rates, COMEX's entire deliverable inventory represents 19 days of global consumption, less than 3 weeks. And that assumes zero investor demand, zero ETF inflows, zero sovereign buying. Most of that 36 million ounces is already allocated, already spoken for. The genuinely available silver for unexpected demand is probably 10 to 15 million ounces. 1 week of global industrial demand. The backwardation signal, silver futures, are trading in backwardation. Spot silver trades at $2.88 per ounce premium over futures. The largest backwardation since January 1980 during Hunt Brothers squeeze. Backwardation means immediate physical delivery is more valuable than future promises. The market pays premium for metal today rather than waiting. This signals physical scarcity and delivery stress. $2.88 per ounce on $71 silver represents 4% premium for immediate delivery. That is enormous. The last time backwardation reached these levels was January 1980, when silver approached to Amifud at $50 and Hunt Brothers attempted market corner. This time, there are no margin rule changes that can fix supply deficits. The shortage is structural, not manipulative. The lease rate explosion. Silver lease rates tell you everything about physical availability. Normally, lease rates trade below 1%. This represents cost for institutions to borrow silver for industrial use or hedging. In October 2025, London silver lease rates spiked to 39%, from under 1% to 39% in weeks, a 40 times increase in cost to borrow silver. Rates settled back to around 32%, but remained 30 times higher than normal. This means no available silver to borrow. Industrial users who normally lease silver for manufacturing are quoted rates making production uneconomical. The physical market is so tight that lenders charge crisis premiums just to release metal temporarily. The EFP spread. Exchange for physical represents price difference between COMEX future versus physical metal in London. Normally, the spread closes within hours through arbitrage. If London physical trades above COMEX futures, traders buy futures, take delivery, ship to London until prices equalize. In December 2025, EFP spread reached $1.55 above normal levels. It stayed elevated for days. Arbitrage is not working. The physical market is disconnected from paper. The Shanghai COMEX spread exceeded $8 per ounce. These spreads normally close within hours. When they stay open for days or weeks, it proves physical delivery stress is overwhelming normal market mechanisms. The delivery data. January through April 2025 saw 32,473 silver contracts delivered. Unprecedented pace compared to 23,414 total COMEX deliveries for all of 2023. In April 2025 alone, 55,878 contracts stood for delivery. This is not normal trading activity. This is buyers demanding physical metal at rates the exchange has never experienced. And it accelerated through December as China's January 1st deadline approached. The paper-to-physical ratio reached 28 to 33 paper ounces for each physical ounce of registered silver available. When that ratio gets above 20 to 1, squeeze dynamics become probable. We are well above that threshold. The January 1st supply cliff China is Ministry of Commerce Announcement 68 from October 26th. established state trading requirements for silver exports, effective January 1st, 2026. All silver exports require government licenses. Minimum production 80 tons annually. Demonstrate export performance 2022 to 2024. ISO certifications required. Application deadline November 12th. We are past that deadline. China processes 60% to 70% of global silver through its refining network. Even metal mined in Peru and Mexico flows through China. On January 1st, that processing and capacity becomes subject to government approval. This is not outright ban. It is government control over export flow. Beijing can approve exports when domestic supply is comfortable. Restrict when inventories tighten. They have turned silver into geopolitical lever. While China suspended rare earth controls in November 2025, they did not suspend silver licensing. January 1st remains effective date. The COMEX drain as preparation. The 60% vault drain over 4 days in December represents institutional preparation for January 1st. Smart money is converting paper to physical while they still can. Before Chinese licensing creates permanent supply uncertainty. They are not waiting to see if China approves exports. They are not trusting that London can source non-Chinese metal. They are securing guaranteed possession now. This is what informed players do when they see supply cliff approaching. They take delivery, they drain vaults, they remove metal from the system, and when COMEX registered silver falls from 60 million to 36 million ounces in 4 days, it tells you institutional fear is real. The 6-day countdown. We are 6 days from January 1st, 6 days until Chinese export licensing takes effect, 6 days until the largest processor of silver becomes subject to government approval for every ounce leaving the country. What happens in those 6 days? More vault drains, more delivery demands, more conversion from paper to physical. The 36 million ounces remaining in COMEX registered could fall to 25 million or less by January 1st. And then what? Then the market tests whether China approves export licenses, whether London can source adequate non-Chinese metal, whether prices remain stable or gap violently higher. The London vault depletion LBMA vault holdings declined dramatically from COVID-era peaks, from 35,267 tons in April 2020 to approximately 25,739 tons by end 2024, a 28% decline. Between December 2024 and February 2025, 128.5 million ounces were withdrawn from London vaults. That is 15.1% in just 2 months. Approximately 2/3 of LBMA silver is allocated to ETFs. This leaves limited float for industrial and investment demand. The available float after ETF holdings is estimated at just 276.5 million ounces globally. As COMEX drains and Chinese exports face licensing, London becomes the relief valve. But London inventories are also depleting. The global visible silver inventory is approaching crisis levels everywhere simultaneously. The Shanghai collapse. Shanghai Futures Exchange inventories 881.9 tons on December 24th, but 43% was withdrawn in just 2 weeks. Daily withdrawals hit 57.7 tons, double previous maximums. Total outflows, 257 tons between mid-December and Christmas. This is Chinese industrial buyers draining warehouses before January 1st, when export licensing makes future imports uncertain. Shanghai inventories are down 75% from 2021 peaks. The largest silver consumer in the world is running on fumes. This is why export licensing was necessary. Domestic shortages were approaching. The 5-year deficit impact. 5 consecutive years of global deficits, 2021, 81 maoz, 2022, 253 maoz, 2023, 140 maoz, 2024, 149 maoz, 2025, 108 maoz projected, 108 maoz. Cumulative deficit, 820 million ounces. Nearly 10 months of global mine production erased from above-ground inventories, and those inventories are now reflected in the vault data. COMEX down 58%, London down 28%, Shanghai down 75%. Total 2024 demand, 1.16 billion ounces. Supply, 1.001 billion. The 149 million ounce gap came from inventories, from the vaults that are now approaching empty. This is why the 4-day COMEX drain is so significant. There is no buffer left, no safety margin, no excess inventory to absorb unexpected demand. The industrial demand that cannot stop. Industrial silver demand hit record 680.5 million ounces in 2024, 4th consecutive annual record. 2025 projected to exceed it. Solar photovoltaic, 232 million ounces in 2024, up from 118 million in 2022. Solar represents 19% of total silver demand, driven by climate commitments locked in for decades. By 2030, solar could consume 250 million ounces annually. Electric vehicles, EVs use 25 to 50 grams per vehicle versus 15 to 20 for legacy vehicles. As EV adoption grows from 15% toward 40% of new vehicles by 2030, automotive adds 50 to 100 million ounces annually. AI data centers, substantial silver for electrical infrastructure. Unlike consumer electronics, data centers prioritize performance. They cannot compromise on materials. None of these demand drivers can be turned off. Solar driven by government mandates, EVs driven by emissions regulations, data centers driven by trillion-dollar investments already committed. This demand is structural, permanent, accelerating. The supply that cannot respond. Global mine production 2024, 819.7 million ounces. Just 0.9% growth when demand grew over 3%. 72% of silver mined as byproduct of lead, zinc, copper, gold operations. When silver prices rise, these companies do not dramatically increase production. They mine for primary metal. Silver comes along for a ride. Primary silver mines require 5 to 8 year development timelines. By the time new mines produce, crisis will have played out. The paper market breaks. When physical supply cannot meet demand, paper markets break down. Futures prices lose connection to spot. Backwardation intensifies. Delivery demands exceed available metal. The system fractures. COMEX losing 60% of registered silver in 4 days is proof we are approaching that fracture point. $2.88 backwardation is proof. 39% lease rates are proof. 155 EFP spreads are proof. The paper market is dying. And January 1st is the death blow when Chinese refining comes off the board. The price path forward silver at $71 today. COMEX registered at 36 million ounces. China implements licensing in 6 days. What happens to price? Conservative scenario. Silver tests 85 to 95 by end January as market digests. Chinese export uncertainty and COMEX inventories fall below 30 million ounces. Base scenario. Silver hits 100 hours to 110 by Q2 2026 as first industrial supply disruptions emerge and physical premiums explode globally. Aggressive scenario. Silver reaches $120 to $150 by Q4 2026 as gold-silver ratio compresses toward 25 to 1 and squeeze dynamics force paper market settlement failures. These are not fantasy numbers. These are outcomes based on removing 60% to 70% of global refining capacity, while demand remains at record levels and inventories approach empty. Bank of America targeting $65, already exceeded. JP Morgan targeting $56 to $58, conservative. None of these forecasts fully incorporate Chinese licensing impact or COMEX vault drain acceleration. The institutional response, iShares Silver Trust. $368 billion net inflows over past year. Assets reached $27 billion. Institutional money positioning. Sprott Physical Silver Trust, 204 million ounces of allocated bars. Inflows substantial throughout 2025. CFTC data shows commercials holding 66.2% of open interest on short side. That represents 101,189 contracts, or roughly 505 million ounces of paper silver. If physical delivery pressure intensifies, these shorts face squeeze dynamics. JP Morgan accumulated estimated 600 million to 1 billion ounces after $920 million manipulation settlement. They understand supply dynamics better than anyone. They are not selling at $71. Central banks and sovereigns. Central banks bought over 1,000 metric tons of gold for 3 consecutive years. Historic shift away from dollar reserves. Silver following same pattern with lag. Sovereign wealth funds allocating to silver as strategic resource hedge. India imported 2,600 tons in just September and October 2025. Smart money at national level, securing physical while available. This buying pressure is just beginning. The 6-day timeline. Next 6 days are critical. January 1st, Chinese export licensing takes effect. COMEX registered silver likely falls further as more buyers demand delivery before deadline. By January 7th, market tests whether China approves export licenses, whether London can source non-Chinese metal. First week will be confusion and uncertainty. By January 20th, market realizes Chinese silver not flowing as before. Delivery timelines stretch. Physical premiums spike globally. Peru and Mexico overwhelmed with orders for non-Chinese supply. By January 31st, first industrial disruptions possible. Solar manufacturers reporting silver shortages, electronics producers struggling to secure feedstock. Media coverage intensifies. This is logical cascade from removing largest refining source, while COMEX inventories are at 19-day supply and global deficits persist. The historical precedent, 1980. Silver went from $6 to $50 in 12 months during Hunt Brothers squeeze. That was manipulation stopped by margin changes. This is structural deficit. China is not Hunt Brothers. No regulator can force sovereign nation to export commodities needed domestically. 2010, rare earth prices exploded 500% to 1,000% after Chinese export quotas. Took over a decade for Western alternatives. Prices never returned to pre-quota levels. Silver following same playbook. Export controls on strategic resource that cannot be substituted. Physics demands silver for its applications. No workarounds exist. The COMEX drain. As proof, 4-day drain of 60% of registered silver is unprecedented. Not data error, not normal year-end activity. Institutional panic preparing for January 1st. When sophisticated buyers with access to commodity trading desks demand physical delivery at these rates, it confirms supply crisis is imminent. They are not waiting to see if paper markets function. They are securing guaranteed possession while they still can, before vaults empty completely, before Chinese licensing creates permanent uncertainty. This is your warning. The institutions are already positioned. The vaults are draining. The deadline is 6 days away. The moment of truth. COMEX lost 60% of registered silver in 4 days. China implements export licensing in 6 days. Shanghai drained 43% of inventory in 2 weeks. London vaults down 28% from peaks. 5 years of deficits drained 820 million ounces from global stockpiles. Industrial demand at record levels and accelerating. Mine supply growing less than 1% annually. Chinese refining 60% to 70% of global capacity coming under government control January 1st. The paper market is breaking. $2.88 backwardation, 39% lease rates, $1.55 EFP spreads, 28 to 33 paper ounces per physical ounce of registered silver. These are crisis metrics. Silver at $71 is not expensive when you understand destination. Not overvalued when physical inventories represent weeks of global demand. Actually cheap relative to where it must go to balance supply against demand. The question is not if COMEX registered silver falls below 30 million ounces. The question is when. The question is not if Chinese licensing restricts supply. The question is how much. The question is not if silver breaks $100. The question is how fast. Conservative analysts say Q2 2026. Aggressive analysts say Q1 2026. The vault drain says sooner. The 6-day countdown to Chinese licensing says much sooner. Institutions are converting paper to physical. Sovereigns are securing strategic stockpiles. Industrial buyers are panic ordering before supply chains seize. And retail investors are still trying to understand what the COMEX drain means. The smart money is positioned. The vaults are emptying. The deadline is approaching. The only question is whether you will act before the window closes. You have 6 days until China implements export licensing. You have weeks before COMEX registered falls below 25 million ounces. You have months before industrial supply disruptions hit mainstream news. The COMEX vault drain is not a warning shot. It is the warning. And the institutions who drained that vault know exactly what is coming January 1st. This is your final opportunity to position before the supply chain fractures, before physical premiums explode, before $100 silver becomes inevitable rather than possible. The clock is running, the vaults are draining, and January 1st is 6 days away.